Since they had the same destination, Jacob and Kathy decided to take a cab to Sophie's school together. "You've played Juliet before?" After sitting down, he asked Kathy. "Yeah, Romeo and Juliet is the play that the school does every 3 years." Kathy nodded. "My co-actor of that play was the most handsome guy in the school, so a lot of the girls were jealous of me for playing Juliet." Jacob laughed at seeing her look so bashful. "Oh, how's your cultivation going recently?" Kathy changed the subject. "It's going steadily," Jacob answered. Since he had unlocked 3 openings with lightning cultivation last weekend, his cultivation strength had grown. After he went back to his dorm, he couldn't find a place to summon the lightning to temper his body. He had to absorb the 5 elemental essences the regular way, and tried to balance the elemental essences with the data Jade and Julia provided him. In the mornings, Jacob jogged around campus before going to the small forest to practice the fundamental boxing techniques. After classes, he would go to tutor Sophie in the evenings and come back to his dorm on Snowflake. His life had fallen into a routine. "I reached level 3 of the Chi refinement realm, and Grandma taught me how to make elixirs," Kathy said. Sitting in the cab, they talked about cultivation with such ease, as if they were talking about homework. "Making elixirs?" Jacob was curious. "Yeah, the life-death note she taught me is capable of making elixirs." Kathy nodded. "After a few days' practice, I'm familiar with the process and should be able to make the youth pills for Susan." Jacob had a hard time believing it. After all, she was only at level 3 of the Chi refinement realm, and even the core formation realm cultivators had to spend years practicing before they could master the techniques of making elixirs. If Kathy could make elixirs after a few days of practice, then the art of making elixir would be too easy. Seeing the disbelief on Jacob's face, she bit her lip. "I think making elixirs is almost the same as cooking. The key lies in the control of the fire. The life-death note is like the spatula, and what I need now is fire." Making elixirs is almost the same as cooking? Jacob thought. He almost choked. However, on second thought, none of the cultivators seemed to be able to cook. "I'll need to borrow Snowflake to make the elixir pills," Kathy said. "Snowflake? Okay." Jacob agreed after a moment of hesitation. Snowflake loved to eat and hated working. Maybe it was time for it to do something useful. "The life note Grandma gave me can gather essence, but I always find it difficult to circulate it. The trouble lies in the gate of the ordering acupoint. Did you encounter this problem when you first cultivated?" Kathy took the opportunity to ask him fundamental questions about cultivation. The stuff that the old woman taught her was too profound, and she explained the basics very little. Kathy was too embarrassed to trouble her with such simple questions, so she turned to Jacob. "The gate of the ordering acupoint?" Jacob thought back to when he first started cultivating. "It is a bit difficult. You must concentrate on breaking through the cyclic gate acupoint before you can unblock the gate of the ordering." As a master of the soul formation realm, the old woman couldn't remember such small details of the early cultivation stage, just like great writers who sometimes had trouble remembering the spelling of some words. However, Jacob had just reached the 3rd level, and thus had a clear memory of the process when he cultivated and broke through the spirit concentration scroll. Although he didn't know about the cultivation technique Kathy was practicing, the general idea of all basic cultivation techniques was unblocking acupoints and straightening out meridians with nature essence. 1st level was equivalent to the foundation establishment realm, and the process of breaking through spirit concentration scroll was equivalent to the Chi refinement realm. The only difference between the human cultivators and dragon cultivators was that the latter had an easier time before the 3rd level due to the existence of dragon cores. While human cultivators divided the Chi refinement realm into 10 levels, the spirit concentration scroll of the dragon tribe only had 3 levels. Kathy took the opportunity and asked him a few more questions. Jacob told her everything he knew from his experience, since they only talked about the process of cultivation and didn't touch on the specific techniques. The exchange between low-level cultivators was beneficial to them. As the only disciple of the old woman, Kathy had no peers, so talking to Jacob was very helpful to her. While they talked, the cab arrived at Sophie's school. Many luxurious cars were parked on both sides of the school gate. Undoubtedly, they belonged to the parents who came here to watch the show. It was almost time to start, so Jacob and Kathy hurried into the school. The night view of the school was very pretty. Lights shone on the beautiful garden and the trees around it, giving people a peaceful feeling. The venue of the show was the Arts Hall. Not familiar with the layout of the school, Jacob followed Kathy. The streetlights highlighted the pretty views of the campus. Walking on the pebbled path, Kathy felt like she had gone back to the time when she was still a student in this school. The moment they entered the Arts Hall, lively crowds of students and parents came into their sight. "Kathy, here you are!" Ms. Blue, Sophie's class advisor, suddenly appeared behind them. "Hello, Ms. Blue." Kathy quickly greeted her, and Jacob smiled slightly in greeting as well. "Who is playing Juliet this year?" Kathy asked her. "You don't know?" Ms. Blue glanced at Jacob and said, "It's Sophie from the senior year." "Oh, it's her?" Kathy was surprised. "The students voted for her in the school's forum. She didn't want to play at first, but all her classmates were adamant that she would be the perfect Juliet and ended up convincing her," Ms. Blue explained. Jacob smiled proudly at that. He always knew that Sophie was popular in school, but he didn't know that all her peers loved her so much. "It's almost time. Let's go in to watch the play," Ms. Blue said. "Okay." Kathy nodded. In the auditorium, the students and parents had all taken their seats, and the place was as lively as a movie theater 10 minutes before the movie began. The stage was all set, and the actors and actresses were backstage doing last-minute preparations. Jacob wanted to sit with Sophie's parents, but he didn't see them anywhere. Therefore, he could only sit with Kathy and Ms. Blue in the boisterous auditorium. Lights and music were all ready. It was a full house, and it began to quiet down gradually. With ballet dancers entering the stage, the play began. Under the spotlight, students who were playing aristocrats danced in a ballroom. As the music entered a small climax, Sophie, in the stunning costume, slowly walked from the left side of the stage to the center. She was wearing the dress that Jacob bought for her. With makeup on her gorgeous face, she stunned everyone with her beauty. "So beautiful." Jacob heard the admirations from the guys sitting behind him. Very soon, a boy in a formal suit strolled onto the stage from the left with a wine glass in his hand. Jacob looked at the boy closely and found that his looks were okay, but not at all handsome. "The boy who was going to play Romeo was Henry, who had just transferred to our school. However, he skipped school for several days and was replaced by this boy. I heard that Henry has dropped out," Ms. Blue said casually. Jacob heard their conversation and finally understood why Sophie had been in such a good mood when she found out that Henry was imprisoned in the North Atlantic Dragon Palace.